Now this one I'm intrigued by. Cena coming back to going to face Reigns at SummerSlam. My favorite wrestlers of all time. Number 1 is Jericho. Number 2 is Cena. I'm very, very intrigued by this. I actually had to watch her all yesterday for the first time in probably about 4 or 5 months. But with Cena, it's like, he's arguably one of the, you can make a case, the most popular wrestler of all time, aside from a guy like The Rock. But him coming back to face Reigns is so intriguing. Reigns has been the best heel, and despite what AEW fans say, the best world champion in wrestling the past year, and it's not even close. And then you could bring in Cena, a classic heel versus face main event of SummerSlam. Several years ago, I think it was 2017, Cena and Reigns was one of my favorite feuds of all time. And it's really weird because that was actually one of their short feuds. In WWE, you often see a long feud, like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months. We saw, I believe, a 7-month feud with Charlotte and Sasha Banks a couple years ago, which was just horrendous. But with Cena and Reigns a couple years ago, I don't remember which pay-per-view it was. It was only a month. But the way they made it, it was just so amazing. Like, Reigns was kind of a tweener, and Cena was the face, and Reigns was constantly talking about Cena, not being there, leaving WWE for Hollywood. To me, it makes it so interesting because, this is a real life situation. Cena's been gone. His last match was over a year ago at WrestleMania against Bray Wyatt. He's been, in different movies and different things. And I feel like this has potential to be one of them. I wish it would be a longer feud because I feel like if Cena wins the championship, I really hope this is a longer feud than it was, just 1 month, maybe 3, 4 months, because I really feel like this has the potential to be one of the best feuds in WWE the past several years.
Well, I think Cena's going to win it and hold it for a little while, for at least up till WrestleMania. I think Cena's back. I don't know if he's going to hold the championship the entire time. They're going to float it back and forth, but I think that out of this, if it's not at SummerSlam, it's going to be at the next one. John Cena is going to win his 17th WWE World Championship, and he's going to break that record out of this feud. I don't think they'd bring Cena back just to squash him with Reigns, especially when they had the feud before, like you said, which was also really good. I think this one is actually set up to be better than the last one. I think Roman Reigns as a star is more set up to do a better job in this feud than they did in the last one, and Cena has already brought the heat in that promo that he cut. And also, I loved the ending to the Reigns Edge match and then Cena's eventual return. It was super old school to me. It felt super old school to me. Seth Rollins interferes, always interfering to make sure that heel stays champion. The interference happens. Everyone gets excited. People are thinking this or that. Edge loses, whatever. Roman Reigns is standing there, and that's when the return happens. It was so old school. I loved it. It made me feel like I was in the Ruthless Aggression era again. And Edge and John Cena were involved in it, so it just made it even a little bit more nostalgic for me.
Yeah, I don't know much about the Ruthless Aggression era because, I started watching, I feel like a newbie because I started watching in 2014.
Okay.
But with, Cena, I feel like he's definitely going to win at SummerSlam, in my opinion. But the wait till WrestleMania, I think that's very intriguing and very interesting because at the same, he's been gone for Hollywood from WWE for about a year and a half. For him to stay with WWE for about 9 months or so, 8, 9 months, I think that's very interesting. I think it's more likely he maybe wins at SummerSlam, maybe loses his title at Survivor Series against somebody. But to me, I feel like they have to know who's going to beat him, though, because if you beat Cena after he beats the record and everything, it has to be somebody huge. The only person that makes sense will be Reigns right now. But if let's say they bring in Lesnar at Survivor Series to be Cena, God, to me that would, in a way, it makes sense. But to me, I feel like that is just ridiculous. Cena breaks the record. A guy who's been loyal to the WWE for nearly 2 decades now, and then you bring in the part-time guy who just here for the paycheck and has a 15-minute match at the absolute max to defeat him for the title. It's interesting because to me, Lesnar and Reigns are the only people who make any sense at all to beat Cena. But I don't know. I think that's interesting, but I really, really, really hope it doesn't happen.
What if Cena sticks around and he takes the title, And then Roman Reigns kind of just waits around in the background while that Lesnar-Cena feud is going on. Maybe Roman Reigns either goes away or just has a smaller feud with Seth Rollins or somebody. And then Royal Rumble, Roman Reigns wins it again. Then we got Cena Reigns at WrestleMania for the main event.
I mean, you can't get really bigger than that. That would make that would make some sense. And I don't know. I just really feel like Reigns or Lesnar. Like if you put the title on Cena, it has to be one of those guys. Nobody wants to see it Lesnar. People who want to see Reigns, honestly, I don't really understand that because Reigns has had the title. We're getting close to be about a year now. By the time SummerSlam happens, I think it'll be a year. But to me, I feel like Cena's going to win at SummerSlam. This is the only reason he's came back to get the championship, to get the record and everything. Deservingly so because he's been a guy who's been with WWE forever. But whoever beats him, though, I feel like whoever beats him, they're the next top star. McIntyre, he's been a top guy for WWE for the past year, and people are wanting him to be this megastar. And by the time he got to the megastar, people were starting to get tired of him because he was getting in the main event scene too much. But at the same time, it's like, unless you build up this guy who's like out of nowhere, like if you build up Seth Rollins to what he used to be with the Authority, with Triple H and Kane, unless it's a guy like that, just Reigns and Lesnar, unfortunately, those are the only two people who make sense. Reigns against Cena at WrestleMania, to me, I feel like that would be very, very intriguing in the best possible way. Because, Cena can kind of ride off in the sunset. He beat the title. He broke the record. He's in the main event, basically, of like the wrestling Super Bowl. What more does he have to do to cement himself as one of the best of all time? Then you have Reigns, who has another long championship reign. I think that would honestly probably make the most sense.
They could make it like a street fight or something, too. Something that fits both of their aggressive style characters. What about a triple threat match also? That's kind of scary. Think about Lesnar, Reigns, Cena. That'd be a ton of fun. And that would bring back their return on investment on Lesnar for sure.
And we've actually kind of seen a couple of triple threat championship matches that involve Lesnar. Because Royal Rumble years ago, it was Cena, Rollins, and Lesnar.
Yep.
And then WrestleMania, I think it was Cena and Reigns, Rollins catching the Money in the Bank as well. So, okay, maybe it's Cena against Lesnar at WrestleMania, and you mentioned Reigns catches the Money in the Bank during the match type of deal. I mean, we're getting way out there, and I feel like the more I talk about this, the more I feel like this should actually happen. But we know WWE's logic; it's honestly probably not going to happen though.
Yeah, it'll probably be they'll mess it up somehow, or like you said, Cena will come back for a very short time, and this will all just go away. And we'll just get a little burst of excitement out of the crowd coming back. Because I think that's what they're doing it for. They've been saving this for when they can put the crowd back in the stadiums.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I mean, Money in the Bank was the first, pay-per-view that's had fans in, a year and a half. And to me, I thought that was honestly probably smarter by WWE to have Cena at Money in the Bank opposed to Raw. I understand if you say, Raw, Cena's going to return. But people thought he was going to return. But the fact that it was at Money in the Bank, to me, honestly, makes it kind of more surprising because it wasn't actually on, actually TV was on a pay-per-view. But to me, I feel like Cena returning under Reigns feud has a ton of potential. Definitely has potential to be one of the best feuds we've seen in quite some time. But